We're going to get a little bit Kabbalistic today. Apologies to those who hate that. Okay. Good morning, everyone, to the YouTube people. We're doing Parashat Ekev. I forgot to mention the first one. There's some fruit and stuff out there. So the words of Torah should be Leilun Ishmat Amnon ben Sarah, who was a member of the shul for a long time. Okay, Parashat Ekev. There's a Gemara Menachot, very famous Gemara Menachot. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people, what does Hashem want from you? Very famous. This should be very well known. This is a very famous pasuk. And now, Jewish people, what does Hashem want from you? Only to fear Him. What do we learn in the Gemara from this? Very well known Gemara. What does Hashem want? What does Hashem want? Ma is me'ah, 100. Yes? What does Hashem want from you? Moshe Rabbeinu tells us, what does Hashem want from you already? What does He want from you? Only to fear Him. And then a whole list of other things. The Gemara says, we learn from here that what Hashem wants from you is 100 berachot every single day. 100 blessings every single day. Now, if you go to shul and you pray every day, 3 times a day with the 18 berachot, 19 berachot, and Shemona Esrei with Hazara, we're good. On weekdays, we get this easily. On Shabbat, on fast days, it's a little tough, which is why the custom is on a lot of fast days and Yom Kippur, we smell besamim to increase berachot, to make sure we reach the 100 berachot quota for every single day. Yes. I got the eyebrow, but yes. So, Rashi says, what is the mashma'ut? What is the understanding from the pasuk? How does this pasuk tell us this? Yisrael, now Hashem, ma Hashem Elokecha, what does Hashem want? Rashi says, me'ah karire, read it 100. Just add an aleph into that word, ma. Add an aleph in the middle. And so instead of saying, what does Hashem want? It says, 100 Hashem wants. Me'ah Hashem Elokecha, Hashem wants 100 from you. No, well-known Rashi, I think. Tosafot says his own reasons. Tosafot says, Sho'el me'imach, if you count the letters in every one of the pasuk, this whole pasuk, count the letters, you have 99 letters. Sho'el is spelled missing a vav. It should be shin vav aleph lamed. It's just missing that vav. Add the vav back in there, you get 100 letters. And so therefore, count the letters in the pasuk, Tosafot says in Gemara, count the letters in this pasuk, and that's how you know Hashem wants 100 berachot from you. 100 blessings a day. Okay. Another answer to Tosafot says is, ma, what? This word ma, what does Hashem want? Let's use the famous atbash. Atbash is a code, a Jewish code in Hebrew. Aleph becomes taf. Bet becomes shin. The beginning letters become corresponding to the ending letters, right? So the first letter aleph becomes a taf, the last letter. The second letter bet becomes the second to last letter, shin, and onward and onward. What does the mem become? Mem becomes a yud, if you count the other way. Mem becomes a yud. And the hey, 5, which is the 5th letter, becomes the 5th to last letter, which is a tzadi. Tzadi and yud, 90 and 10, 100. We got the magical 100 again. We have a lot of attempts to understand why the halakha is that so. The Gemara doesn't tell us how we got this halakha, which is why the Tosafot and Rashi are arguing, how do we get there? All the Gemara says is, Hayav Adam, the word Hayav. Hayav Adam lebarech me'ah berachot b'chol yom. You have to make 100 blessings a day. And it gives this pasuk. How'd you get there? All the different questions of how you calculate it. There's a famous midrash. The midrash says, you know who made this halakha? It comes from the Torah, but who instituted it? David HaMelech. David HaMelech in his time, there were 100 people, there was a plague that was killing 100 people a day. And David HaMelech thought and said, the people are dying because we're not blessing Hashem and thanking Hashem for everything He gives us enough. Lack of gratitude is the worst thing, and therefore the plague is around. And so therefore Midrash says, David HaMelech said, from now on, every single person has to make 100 berachot every single day. And the moment he made this takana and everyone followed, the plague stopped and the 100 people stopped dying every single day. This is a midrash. It's actually Tehillim that we read into it. The Tehillim 128. It's a very short Tehillim because if it's 128, you know it's one of the Shila Ma'alot, right? The Shila Ma'alot, this one's a very short one, only a few Pesukim. And you can see this takana, this decree from David HaMelech in here. So if you read Tehillim often, pay attention. Shir HaMa'alot, Ashrei kol yereh Hashem ha'olech b'drachav. How praiseworthy and lucky is someone who fears Hashem, yereh Hashem. Remember the pasuk? Pasuk says, "V'ata Yisrael ma Hashem shu'el me'elach kim lir'ah oto." To fear Him. There's that word, to fear Hashem. Yegia kapecha kitochel. You worked, you made money, you're eating. Ashrecha v'tov lach. How fortunate are you that you're eating because of the work that you did and the money you made. Eshtecha kegefim porya b'yagdei bedecha is a famous pasuk. Your wives are like the vines, the grapes and the vines. Banecha kishtezetim, and your sons are like olives around the table. We'll get into that pasuk maybe another time. Hineh, behold, kichen yeborach gavir. So is blessed a man, Yereh Hashem, who fears Hashem. Again, the word Yereh Hashem, who fears Hashem. Yibarecha Hashem et Zion. Hashem should bless you from Zion. Ur'eh betuv Yerushalayim, and see the good in Yerushalayim. Kol yemei hayecha, all the days of your life. Ur'eh banim lebanecha, shalom Yisrael. This is the Tehillim. What do we learn here? If you look at the pasuk, Yegia kabecha kitochel, you worked hard, and you with the work of your palms, you're eating food now. Hineh chichen yeborach gaber. So will a man be blessed. The problem is yeborach is missing a vav, and the way it's written, it will be read yebarech. And so if you reread this pasuk, kichen yevarech gaber. So should a man bless. What should a man bless? Kichen. Weird double. So because so. Kichen. Add up the gematria. Kichen. Kaf 20. Yud 10. That's 30. Chaf 20. That's 50. Nun Sofit 50. 100. Kichen yebarech gaber. 100 should a man bless. Yereh Hashem, and he'll have fear of Hashem. Blessing Hashem leads to the fear of Hashem. And that makes sense in the pasuk of the Torah. Again, V'ata Yisrael, now Jewish people, Moshe says, Ma Hashem Elokecha shu'el me'imach. What does Hashem want from you? Him lead alto, just fear Him. How do you fear Him? Ma comes me'ab berachot. Bless Hashem 100 times a day. It'll get your intellect on Hashem. You'll become to fear Him. Okay. The Hidah says on this Tehillim, the Hidah writes that there's 98 curses in Kitavo. And the curses, the kilalot of Kitavo, you count them, there's 98. After the 98 curses, Moshe adds 2 general curses, right? God forbid. He says, Gam kol holi v'chol makah. All the sicknesses and all the hittings you won't get. Or you will get, God forbid, but you shouldn't get. And so 98 plus the last 2, called holy v'chol makah, equals 100. So there's 100 curses, God forbid, in Parashat Kitavo. And so if you want to be saved from the 100 curses of Parashat Kitavo, get involved with 100 blessings. And if you do the 100 blessings, you'll be saved from the 100 cursings. So says the Hidah. Hidah goes on to say, you know what else equals 98? Gehinam, without the Yud. Gehinam is 98 as well. Want to be saved from Gehinam? Get involved in the 100 blessings as well. What else does it say? Ve'esira Hashem, this is pasuk in the parasha. Ve'esira mimecha kol holi, our parasha. Hashem will remove from you all the sicknesses. Ve'esira mimecha kol holi. Kol holi is 98, and all the 2 from Parashat Kitavo will be 100. Mimecha, ve'esira mimecha, he will remove from you. Mimecha, mem, chaf, 40, and 20, 100. Ve'esira mimecha, the 100 will remove, kol holi, all the 98 curses from Kitavo. And so we see here all the reasonings behind saying the 100 blessings a day. Whatever the reasoning behind it is, this is a Gemara that says hayav, it's obligated, you have to make 100 blessings a day. Shulchan Aruch says you have to make 100 blessings a day. This is a halakha in Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Now I want to show you another Tehillim. So we did one Tehillim quickly because it's late. Let's do another Tehillim. Tehillim 34. This is not going to be the whole thing. Just a couple of Pesukim. If you look at Tehillim 34, David HaMelech writes, we say this Tehillim every Shabbat morning. He says over here, 34, the David, Bishanoto et ta'amo lefnei Abimelech, v'garashehu v'yelah. We all know what this Tehillim is about. When David changed his ta'amo, he changed his logic, his reasoning before Abimelech, which means there's a story in the Tanakh. Look in Shemuel. David HaMelech is running away after the city of the Kohanim were destroyed. Now David HaMelech is on the run, running from his father Shaul. And he goes into a non-Jewish city, and they recognize him as the David HaMelech that killed Goliath, his cousin. Oh, the number one fugitive, number one most wanted Israeli fugitive. And so they said, we got David HaMelech. And so what did he do? What did he do? He changed and started acting like a madman. He acted like cuckoo a little bit. The Pasuk say in Tanakh, he started scratching the doorway with his nails, and his drool was going down his beard. That's what it says straight out in Tanakh. You can look it up, right? And so what they say to him, the king comes and says, show me King David, the mighty King David that you captured. And this Meshuggah, this is the guy. And that's how he saved his life. Famous Midrash on this. David HaMelech said to Hashem, I understand why you created everything, but I don't understand why you created the mentally challenged. What's the purpose of a mentally challenged person? Why would you do that? And so Hashem says, you know why? I'm going to make you mentally challenged, and it's going to save your life. And so that's why this thing happened to David HaMelech. So the question is, the first pasuk of this Tehillim. So now, if you didn't know this, next time you open this Tehillim, now you know what it is. The David, B'shanato ta'amo lefnei Abimelech. So what was the name of the king that he was in front of? No, not Abimelech. Good question. The name of the king was Achish. Achish. So why is it called Abimelech? You fell for it. Rashi says, Abimelech is like Pharaoh, like Mr. President. It's the standard name for all the kings. His name was Achish. Anyway, when he was before Achish and he became crazy, next pasuk, Abarecha et Hashem b'chol ha'et. I will bless Hashem at all times. Abarecha et Hashem b'chol ha'et. Tamid teilato b'fi. His praise is always in my mouth. V'Hashem titale nafshi yishmeu anavim v'yismahu. Okay. And so I praise Hashem at all times. I heard very interesting from Rabbi Mansell from Brooklyn. He says, David HaMelech was saying, I acted crazy for a few minutes, and that saved my life. I don't know where he got this from, but I find it interesting and funny. He says, David HaMelech says, we all act crazy, if you think about it. Why do we all act crazy? Because all from Jews, we pick up food, we mumble to the food, we make a beracha quickly without any thought, we put the food in our mouth. So someone's coming from planet Mars, and he comes down and he says, this guy's talking to their food. Mumble to the food, he's talking to the food. What's this guy's talking about? And so we all look like we're crazies. And so therefore, instead of being like a crazy person, talking to your food without any kavanah, a blessing to the food without no kavanah, how about we do the third thing? Abarachat Hashem b'chol ha'et. Let's bless Hashem at all times. And what is the next pasuk? Two pasukim after. Gadilu la'Hashem iti. Come raise Hashem and make him great with me. What does the Gemara say this pasuk teaches you? One opinion in the Gemara says, this is the source for Zimun before Birkat Hamazon. Zimun is three people. Why three people? Mahloket Gemara. One pasuk. Havu godel leluhenu. Ki shem Hashem ikra. I'm about to pronounce the name of Hashem. Havu godel leluhenu. Come. Havu is two people, plural. And I'm one. One plus the two is three people for Zimun. Another opinion. Gadilu la'Hashem iti. We say this when we bring the Torah, right? Gadilu la'Hashem iti. You two. Gadilu is plural, which is two. Come, praise Him with me. 2 and 1, 3. That's Birkat Hamazon, Zimun. That's how you, one opinion holds, how you know Zimun is three people. Okay, so two Tehillims alluding to this. David HaMelech got up and made this takana of 100 berachot a day, which comes from the pasuk in our Pirasha. Shulchan Aruch, like I said, says straight out that this is a chiyuv every single day. It's an obligation that we all have to make sure to say 100 berachot a day. And like Mrs. Adaro asked, Chacham Vadia, Chacham David, the answer, also women have an obligation, because this is not considered time-bound. It's not only one day a year. It's not only a certain time of day. Sorry, Esther, you're not off the hook. It's not time-bound. It's not only certain days of the year. It's not only certain times of the day. It's all day. It's all day. And so therefore, all of us should try to make 100 blessings a day. If you pray the Amidah, that's 19 right there. Go to the bathroom a few times, have some meals, say Birkat Mazon, you get another few blessings there. It's not so hard to get to the 100 blessings a day. But this is something, the blessings in the morning, which is so important, thank you. You'll get to the 100 blessings every single day. Now, what is the most important blessing we say? The only blessing that's from the Torah, on food. Maybe because some people say the blessing on the Torah is from the Torah. That's called the food. The only food blessing that's from the Torah is Birkat Hamazon. Birkat Hamazon is from the Torah. Ve'achalta ve'savata u'berachta. Just read the verse. Eat, be satiated, and bless. And therefore, this is the only blessing on food that comes from the actual Torah. All the other blessings are pure rabbinic. What type of Birkat Hamazon is from the Torah? If you fulfill the tenets of this verse. Ve'achalta, did you eat? You ate. Ve'savata, did you get full? No, I didn't get full. I only had a half a pita. Then that's not from the Torah anymore. Even if you have a shiur, I had 2 pitas, but I have a big appetite. I'm not full yet. You still have to bless, but no longer from the Torah. No longer from the Torah. This has lots of ramifications. Why? I'll give you a couple of examples, rapid fire. A guy is not sure if he made Birkat Hamazon. I am in doubt. Did I bless? Did I bench? I don't remember. Well, Safek Perachot Le'akel. If you're not sure, if I'm not sure if I made a blessing on this coffee, do I make another blessing? No. When you're in doubt with the blessing, don't take Hashem's name again. Don't say God's name again. Just drink the coffee. However, Birkat Hamazon is mideoraita. Safek deoraita lehumra. If I'm not sure if I did a biblical thing, I have to do it again. If I'm not sure if I heard shofar, Rosh Hashanah, I don't know how you're not sure, but let's say you're not sure. You have to hear it again, right? But if I'm not sure if I benched, the question that you have to ask the guy is, are you full? If you're full, you had a biblical obligation, you have to repeat benching if you didn't do it. If you're not full, then don't bench because it's only midrabanan. It's a mahloket if women are also commanded from the Torah to bench Birkat Hamazon or not. It's a mahloket. We're not sure if women are obligated from the Torah or obligated from the rabbis. Women are for sure obligated to bench. The question is from the Torah or the rabbis. What's the ramification from this? Same thing. If a woman comes to me and says, I'm not sure if I benched, do I have to bench again? What's the question I ask them? Are you full? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're full or you're not full. Even if you're full, we're not sure if you had a biblical obligation. And so even if you're stuffed full, like you were never full like this in your whole life, possibly it was only rabbinic and therefore you can't bench again. Commentaries say maybe you should think the benching in your mind, but you don't bench with your lips. Can a woman include her husband and children in her benching? So sometimes my wife is exhausted from the kids and Friday night. And so when I do the benching, I'll have her in mind. She'll answer Amen to my Birkat Hamazon. She gets one free pass to not bench. She just answers Amen, right? It happens all the berachot, but it happens more than sometimes. I have to be honest. She takes advantage. Shomea keoneh. Shomea keoneh. If you answer Amen, it's just like you did it. What if I want to reverse it? I'm tired. And I want my wife to make the benching for me. So the question is my wife obligated from the Torah like I'm obligated from the Torah? We're not sure. So how could someone who has a rabbinic obligation take care of someone who has a biblical obligation? The question is, what if I'm not full? Am I going too fast here? What if I'm not full? If I'm not full, I didn't really want to do any of this. If I'm not full, my obligation is rabbinic. And her obligation is rabbinic. Can the rabbinic handle the rabbinic? Better not to, but if you did it, it's okay. We got it? And so therefore, no. It depends on who. My obligation, if I'm full, the pasuk says, if you're full, you're obligated to bless from the Torah. My wife's obligation, we're not sure if it's rabbinic or not rabbinic or biblical. She can't take care of my biblical obligation because we're not sure if she's a biblical obligation. But if I'm not full, I'm rabbinic. Her, she's also rabbinic. Or maybe even if she's full biblical, maybe higher than me. Yeah? And so therefore, if she were to bench for me, I would be upset with her, but it's not a good idea to do it with her.
One just said that I don't think it's very well, but how about for a woman who she's obligated?
Great question. I'm not answering that question. Next time. Okay. Now, where am I going with this? Birkat Hamazon, where am I going with this? I didn't plan on doing the whole halakha session, but it's okay. Birkat Hamazon is the only beracha on food that we have from the Torah. What does our Birkat Hamazon consist of? Now, I apologize to the Ashkenazim. I should have brought a Ashkenaz Sidur out here. I'm not sure we have the same names for the blessings, but you should get the gist of what I'm saying. What are the three berachot? What are the berachot in Birkat Hamazon? Why is our Birkat Hamazon comprised of the words it has? Who made this long Birkat Hamazon like this? And so there's Gemara on this. Also, I think a lot of people should know this. There's Gemara. Gemara says in Berachot, Amar Rahman says, Moshe tiken liYisrael Birkat Hazan. Who made the first beracha? Hazan et ha'olam kulo b'tova b'chen b'chesed b'revach. Who made that? Who's the author of this beracha? Moshe Rabbeinu. When did he make this beracha? When the man fell down from the sky. When the man fell down, he said, wow, look at the bread falling from the sky. Man, I'm going to put a blessing on this. And so Moshe Rabbeinu said, everyone should say, Hazan et ha'olam, Birkat Hamazon. That brings down in his sefer. Moshe also made a beracha prior to this, rabbinical, not hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings bread from the land, who brings bread down from the skies. That was the beracha they made on the man, who brings bread down from the shamayim on the man before. And after they made Birkat Hamazon, Hazan et ha'olam, Moshe Rabbeinu was the author of this. Who made the second beracha, which is Nodeh lecha ala haaretz ve'ala mazon? With me? The second blessing, who made this? Yeshua made this blessing when they got into the land of Israel. That's why he's blessing Hashem for the land. What a beautiful land. Therefore, I'm making a blessing. Allah audits the Allah Mazon. Thank you, Hashem, for the audits. Okay? Who made the third blessing? Rahim. Rahim na Hashem Elokeinu al Yisrael amach v'al Yerushalayim elach bonei Yerushalayim. Who made this blessing? The Gemara calls this blessing not Rahim, actually. The Gemara calls this blessing Nechama. There is another version of this text. You can see Rashi in the Gemara that some people didn't say Rahim. They would say Nahim, like Nechama. Who made this blessing? Shlomo HaMelech and David, his father. David started it, and Shlomo HaMelech finished it. Why? It's all about building up Yerushalayim. Rahim na Hashem al Yisrael amach v'al Yerushalayim yirach. On Zion, on the kingdom of David. Who wrote this? David wrote this. David HaMelech who wrote to Hashem, please keep my kingdom strong, and Yerushalayim. And so the third blessing was written by David and Shlomo. Moshe the first one, Yeshua the second one, David and Shlomo the third one. Who wrote the fourth one? The fourth one is written by the rabbis when the people from Birkat were finally allowed to be buried. Like we know, on Tu B'Av, one of the things that's good about Tu B'Av, what are the good things that happened? I didn't give you a Tu B'Av class this year, but I know I gave you one last year. Tu B'Av, there are 6 things the Gemara said, 6 good things that happened. Remember, the girls are dancing, and the buzdars and the shidduchim happening. That's one of the things. Another thing that happened on Tu B'Av is Harugei Birkat, all the people who were murdered for Birkat. It was a terrible thing. They were finally allowed to be buried because the king did not allow us to bury our people who died until finally we were able to bury the day that we were allowed to bury the people on the ground. They said, you know what? Let's make another beracha to Birkat Hamazon. Hatov v'hametiv. Hatov v'hametiv. Why? Hatov, because when they got the bodies were in perfect shape. They did not decompose yet. Hashem made a miracle. How many years? Until the bodies were buried, they were there for 7 years. The Gemara in Yerushalmi says, really horrific. The Gemara in Yerushalmi says that the king took the bodies. If you don't eat now because you'll lose your appetite. And the king took the bodies. Well, I'll tell you first the Gemara in Bavli, and we'll go to the Yerushalmi. The Gemara in Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud in Gittin says, there were so many dead people that they murdered that the blood from the people that they killed dripped down into the vineyards, the non-Jews' vineyards, and fertilized the soil for 7 years. They didn't have to add any fertilizer. The blood from the people. Terrible. The Gemara in Yerushalmi says, the king took the people, stood them up like a picket fence with their hands like this, one person next to another dead, around his vineyards like a picket fence as a warning sign, don't mess. For 7 years, the king had a picket fence of people. Disgusting. We came after 7 years, and finally we were allowed to bury our people. The people were in perfect shape. They didn't rot. They didn't smell. They were good. Hashem made a miracle, even though we're talking about the destruction of the temple. This is not a good time for us. Yet, within the destruction, Hashem made a miracle, and the rabbis made a beracha, hatov mehametiv. This is the last blessing of Kathmandu, which is rabbinical. It's not from the Torah. This was made by the rabbis. Okay. Fine. That's the Gemara in Berachot 48. Now, the Chidah tells us just about this last beracha, about the people who died from Birkat. It's kind of weird. Why would we want to, when we're thinking Hashem, we just ate a delicious meal, we're going to start thinking about people who were buried and blood and vineyard, picket fences. What are we doing here? Why would we put these people here? That's a question we have to answer. But the Chidah asks a different question about this beracha. What do we say? Ha'el avinu, malkenu, adirenu, boreenu, goalenu, kedoshenu, kedosh Israel. We all know these words? In Birkat Hamazon, last beracha. Chidah asks a question. He says, it seems out of order. How do we say it? Ha'el avinu, our father, malkenu, our king, adirenu, boreenu, our creator, goalenu, who redeems us. Why would you put creator fourth on the list, the Chidah asks? Shouldn't the creator be the first thing on the list? It should say, Bore'enu, Avinu, Malkenu. Our creator should be first, if you want to go in order of a life cycle. And the Chidah has an answer, and the Chidah says, because when we're eating, we're thinking about the people who we buried in the ground. That this beracha is the time we're thinking about the people who were buried in the ground. And Hashem does a massive favor to people who didn't accomplish their tikkun in this world. I know some people are anti-Gilgul. I get it. But the Gilgul, it's all out there, so you gotta bear with me. The Chidah says, we are thanking Hashem for creating us again as a Gilgul. And that's why it's not the first thing on the list. Avinu Malkenu, Adirenu Bore'enu, Avinu Malkenu Bore'enu, our Father, our King, our Mighty One. And then when our job is done, if we have more to do, Bore'enu, He creates us again as a Gilgul, as a reincarnation, and Goalenu, and therefore redeems our soul. And we go through the cycle all over again. This is an insight from the Chidah on why Bore'enu was fourth on the list. The Tzlach HaKadosh, the Tzlach says, why do we want to talk about Harugei Betar, the people who were killed by Betar in blessing of Kathmandu? And there were lots of things that happened over the years that we could have added. We didn't add other things into this blessing. Why only this miracle of the bodies didn't rot? We want to add into our daily blessings of Kathmandu. And the Tzlach tells us, because the rabbis are writing into us, this is right after the destruction of the temple. And we are now in Galut after this happened, during the time of this happened, right before this Birkat story happened. And the rabbis are saying, let's inject into Birkat Hamazon a lesson that will help the Jewish people make it through all the Galut. Just like you would say, when a person's neshama leaves them, the body rots. When the neshama leaves the body decomposes, it's gone. Hashem didn't let that happen. The neshamot left their bodies, and Hashem preserved their bodies and kept them whole for 7 years, even though it was a bad time and He was punishing us. Says that Tzlach, so too you may think, we lost our Bet HaMikdash. We're no longer in Yerushalayim. We're living in America. We're not connected to our neshama, to the Shekhinah. We're done. We can't make it through Galut. Hashem within the Galut will preserve you. And you can last and you can make it. He's preserving us whole. And so don't worry. So this is the lesson of the Tzlach. The Tzlach says that's why this blessing is in the fourth, this lesson is in the blessing of the fourth Birkat. It's a lesson to all of us. The Meshech Chochmah tells us this is a lesson for us specifically because of what I told you from the Gemara Gittin. The Gemara Gittin says, like I said, that their blood nourished the vineyards of the non-Jews for 7 years. Says the Meshech Chochmah, every time we say Birkat Mazon and we think about this, if we know the Gemara associated with this Birkat, we think about this, we think about wine. And a lot of times we bless Birkat Mazon on a cup of wine. When we think about wine, it's the most amazing thing. If a non-Jew touches our wine, we can't drink it. And that's not cooked. If a non-Jew touches our wine, we can't drink it. This is what Haman, according to the Midrash, was telling Ahashverosh why he should get rid of us. They have no respect for you. You can't even drink from their wine cup. In Galut, says the Meshech Chochmah, in Galut, under the dominion of the non-Jews, who, and a snap of a finger, can make our lives horrible, God forbid. We have the audacity to have a commandment that they can't touch our wine. And if they touch our wine, we spill it on the floor. And we still survive. We still survive. Nothing is more illogical than this blood. The second they hear about this law, they should get rid of us. And they don't. And we're still here with this law under non-Jewish governments. Says the Meshech Chochmah, when you think about this, you should have hope for Mashiach. Nothing's going to ever happen to us. Hashem's going to preserve us forever. This is some insight just in the last Birkat, but I want to get back to the first ones. The Shvilei Pinchas, he brings from the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov, and that's now where it gets a little Kabbalistic. He brings from the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov. And he says, well, let's think about this. We have 3 berachot from the Torah, Moshe, Yoshua, David, and Shlomo, and then we have 1 from the rabbis. Well, when it comes to nature, the creatures in nature, we have very famously different categories of beings. The lowest creation is in the category of a domem, a rock, a piece of dirt, domem, a mountain. It's not alive. It's just sitting there. It doesn't have growth. That's the lowest creation on earth. When you go a step up, you have the category of the tzomeach, plant life, trees, flowers. They grow. They have movement. You go another step up, you have the category of the high animal, the animal kingdom. Now they already can move around. They have more, you can see there's more intellect built into them. And then on top of the category of the high, the final category is people, which are called medaber, speakers. Let that sink in. Of all the features of people, the one that's the category is named after are speakers, our power of the mouth. What makes us different than an animal? Well, medaber, we speak. We speak. 4 categories. Each category nourishes itself from the category below it. And so therefore, plants get their nurture from the soil and the rocks and the nutrients and the minerals. When the water falls into the ground, that nourishes the plant life. So each rung on the ladder is nourishing the rung above it. Plants get their nourishment from the domain. Animals feed on the plant life and get their nourishment, especially kosher animals. The kosher animals we eat, they're not predators. They don't kill other animals. They eat grass, and they're vegetarians mostly. And so therefore, category 2, Someach, is feeding category 3, the high. Category 4, Medaber, people, we feed off of category 3 and downward. If you want to go down to category 2, you can also eat vegetables if you want a salad. We can eat the categories below us. Every category can nourish the category below it. This is what the Arizal says. Now, if you think about it, what happens to category 4, the highest category, us? What happens is when our time is up, the circle of life, we go back into category 1. The body goes in the ground, it becomes part of the soil. Ki afar ata ve'afar tashuv. You were come from dirt, you're going back to dirt. Everyone's going back to dirt. And so therefore it's a circle, it's a cycle. The medaber now goes back down. The Arizal doesn't say this, I'm adding this. The Arizal, the medaber, the speaker, the person goes back down into the dirt. And he becomes the domain. And who eats him? The tzomeach, the plant life, eats him. And round we go. Rabbi Miller used to say, when it's raining people, it's raining bodies. When you're eating bodies. You're eating the people that came before you. We are. People decompose, they go back into the ground. The rain comes down into the ground. The rain nourishes together with the people who were before us. And that becomes the plant life, which becomes the animal life, which becomes us. So our nourishment is on our grandparents. This is the circle of life, as the Lion King said, yeah? Now, what is our category called? Medaber. What is our job as people? Our job is to take all the sparks of Kedusha that are in all the categories and elevate them. And so there's a person, there's domim, there's sparks of holiness in the domim, in the dirt. And there's sparks of holiness in the plant life. And there's sparks of holiness in the animal kingdom. We eat the food, kosher food. We make blessings. We speak Torah on the table. We now elevate and sort of redeem these sparks. Cha-ching, add it to the cash register. This is our job until Mashiach comes. It's our job to get, that's why we live physical lives as Jewish people. We don't want to fast all day long. We want to be down here in the world because every time we do some holy activity with the physical world, we're adding more money to our bank, to the cash register. We're redeeming the world and elevating the world around us. However, what is the name of our category? Medaber. How do we go about elevating the food? With our mouths, with our speech. Not eating, with our speech, with eating too. If we don't do our job with our speech, with our blessings and our Torah at the table, we failed the task, and those sparks go right back into the soil for another chance. This is what the Arizal tells us with the Baal Shem Tov. There's a Pirkei Avot, chapter 3. Pirkei Avot says, in Pirkei Avot, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha she'achlu al shulchan echad, 3 that ate on one table, v'lo amru alav divrei Torah, and didn't say Torah on that table, ki'ilu achlu mizbechem metim. 3 people who sat at the table and didn't say blessings and Birkat and divrei Torah, it's like they're eating mizbechem metim, from the sacrifices of dead people. But 3 people who ate on the table and said divrei Torah, it's as if they ate from the table of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's from Hashem's table. Interesting. Now, we just said you're eating the metim. We are eating the metim. If we do our job, if we eat the food, but we don't speak properly, and don't make the blessings properly, and don't say the Torah properly, we failed our mission. And what are we doing now? We're just eating dead metim. We're eating dead people. We're not elevating them. Pirkei Avot says, Shlosha she'achlu, 3 eat. Doesn't say Shlosha anashim she'achlu, 3 people that eat. Shlosha she'achlu, 3 that eat. 3 what? 3 categories of what you eat. Domem, someach, and high. But if you don't use your speech for the berachot and for the Torah, it's just eating metim. There's a Mishnah, there's a Gemara in Kiddushin. Rabbi Shimon says, have you ever seen in your life an animal and a bird that has a job? Blacksmith bird? A lawyer that's a lion? Have you ever seen an animal with a job? No. But they all seem to get their food somehow without pain. But these animals are only here for me, and they get food easy. Va'ani, and me, says Rabbi Shimon, I'm created to serve Hashem. Shouldn't it make sense I should get my panasa easier than the animal gets the panasa? Why is it harder for a human being to put food on the table than an animal? An animal wants food, it goes catches food. A human wants food, got to work 8 hours a day. Why? This is Shimon's question. And he answers, it's because of my fault. I'm not doing my job properly. If I don't do my job properly, I lose my panasa. What's our job? To clarify and take those holy sparks in the food and to elevate it. If we don't do our job properly, by not blessing properly, or with kavanah, or not saying divrei Torah, then Hashem says, you're not doing your job. So the panasa is going to be difficult for you. This is why it's well known. A sigula for panasa is to say Birkat mazon with kavanah. If you do your job and you eat for the right reasons and you bless with kavanah Birkat mazon, then, says the Kabbalist, the food wants you to eat them. The animal's begging you. The burger wants you to eat him. And you're the burger, not the name, the burger, the hamburger. And we have a burger right here. And therefore, panasa will be easier. But if we don't do our jobs, panasa the food doesn't want any part of us. Why would it want part of us? I have to go back into the ground, go through the whole cycle all over again. Panasa will be difficult. What's a sigula for panasa? Birkat mazon with kavanah. Okay. It's making sense now. So now let's go back to the 3 berachot. Hazan et ha'olam, the berachah that Moshe Rabbeinu made, that's for the category of the domem. We're thanking Hashem for the domem that we just ate through the food. Next berachah. Allah is for alamazon, for the land. That's for the plant life. So me'ah, for the second category that grows in the land. And the third berachah, thank you Hashem for Yerushalayim, Nachem Yerushalayim Iraf. That's for the third category, the animals that were served as sacrifices in Yerushalayim. Why do we have 3 berachot in Birkat Hamazon from the Torah? Because we're consuming 3 categories of food, domem, someach, and chai. But there's another category, hatov v'hametiv, the 4th category the rabbis asked. That category is so we start thinking about the cycle of the food, how it goes from dirt to plants to animals to humans back to dirt. And that's why we're bringing in the people who are buried in Betad. We're thinking about burial now. Thank you, Hashem, that we were able to bury them in the ground. And now they become part of the cycle that we eat. So the last berakah, why are we talking about the Harugim Betad on a deep Kabbalistic level? Is because now we're acknowledging the whole cycle. Hashem, if I'm doing my job correctly, I'm elevating the entire category of food, all categories of food, including the people. The Zohar says, in Parashat Vayakel, page 218, the Zohar says that it is so important when you say Birkat Hamazon to be happy. Simcha, when you say Birkat Hamazon. Even though you're now thinking about the dead people, you have to twist it into a happy way. The Zohar says if you say Birkat Hamazon in a happy way, it does great things for you in Shamayim. The Zohar goes on and says, on Shabbat, not only is Hashem happy when you make the blessing, Hashem is happy when you eat the food on Shabbat. Not only Birkat Hamazon, even the eating on Shabbat. The Arizal writes, when you eat on Shabbat, all the food is absorbed by the limbs. All the food goes for nutrients. The Arizal writes this. No, this is not the whole, you don't gain weight on Shabbat thing. But the food, the Arizal said, the food on Shabbat, even if you eat till you're full. The Zohar writes one more thing there, which I find interesting. The Zohar says, when you say Birkat Hamazon properly, you elevate the 4 chariots above. The 4 chariots above. 4 chariots. We just talked about 4 categories. 4 chariots above. And that's our job. It's our job as Jewish people. Rabbi Miller says, there's a halakha, when we had the Beit HaMikdash, if a non-Jew wants to bring a korban, do we accept their korban? Yeah. However, there must be a korban olah, a burnt offering completely. A non-Jew doesn't bring shilamim, where they get to eat the food after it. Only our olah. But the Jewish people, we bring shilamim. You can eat the food also, because it's our job to elevate the food. When we do it the right way, with our speech, with our medaber, we elevate the food. It's not the non-Jew's job. They bring korban olah. Now, what happens when we say Birkat Hamazon properly? What happens is Hashem shows us great favor. It says by Kohanim, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'choneka. Hashem should favor you. Hashem should play favorites. The Gemara says, is there favoritism in creation? Are we really asking that Hashem play favorites? That's not fair. Why should Hashem show us favoritism? And the Gemara answers, Hashem says, when the Jewish people are saying Birkat Hamazon, I told them, Ve'achalta v'sabata u'berachta. If you're full, you bless. You know what these Jewish people do, Hashem says? They have a kazayir or kabetza. They say Birkat Hamazon. They're not full. And still they bless me for the food. They go above and beyond the law. If the Jewish people go above and beyond the law for me and bless me when I didn't ask them for a blessing, I'm going to go above and beyond for them and show them favoritism. And what is that favoritism? The Birkat Kohanim. Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'choneka. Why are we lucky enough to be Birkat Kohanim? Because we say Birkat Hamazon and a kabetza and a kedai. The Gemara says this. The question the commentaries ask is, why did you pick, of all the things we do, the rabbis added thousands of fences to the Torah. Of all the things we do, why dafka is Hashem favoring us because of Birkat Hamazon and a kabetza? The Ben Ish Chai has a great answer. The Ben Ish Chai says, this world was given to Esav. The next world is given to us. Esav is to enjoy this world. So when we go down and we sit by a delicious burger, again, and it's easy, and we have fries and onion rings and Coke the whole 9 yards, and we're loving it, really, the prosecuting angels above, they can say, hey, who gave this Jew permission to indulge like this? This is not his world. This is Esav's world. Why would one of Yaakov's children have the right to have such a great meal? And what do we answer? We answer, hey, I got a permission slip from Hashem. It says straight out in the Torah that I am allowed to eat and be full. And that's how we kick them away, says the Ben Ish Chai. What do the rabbis say? The rabbis come and say, you know what? We want to thank Hashem for just more than when we're full. So we're going to redefine what the word full means. Full doesn't only mean, you don't only have to bless when you're stuffed in your belly. You bless when you ate enough to be considered a meal. Full halakhically is 28.5 grams, right? And so they're redefining what the word full means. What does this do for us, the Ben Ish Chai says? It hurts our case in heaven. Now when I sit down with the same burger and fries and onion rings, and the guy comes and says, hey, who are you to enjoy this world? I can't answer him anymore. I got a permission slip to eat until I'm full because my rabbis just reinterpreted what full means. Full doesn't mean stuff. Full means a kazayit or a kabetza. So I just lost my excuse in heaven. And yet, knowing this, says the Ben Ish Chai, we still went ahead and said we have to bless Hashem. Losing our excuse or not losing our excuse, whatever the case is, we are blessing Hashem for every single thing we eat. If we lose our case in heaven to Esav, so be it. Hashem says, look at these guys. They're willing to give up their best excuse to Esav to bless me for every single thing. I'm going to favor them. Hacham has a different answer. I don't know if everybody knows here. Hacham Yosef wrote a sefer on the Gemara. Beautiful sefer, Me'or Yisrael, gorgeous. And he writes a different answer. And he says, like we said before, Safek berachot la'akel. We are very careful about taking Hashem's name for no reason. It says in the Torah, Ve'achalta v'sabata u'berachta, when you're full, you bless. Where did it say that if you're not full, you bless? Be careful with berachot. And still, the rabbi said, we get it. We still want to bless bread. How do we eat a pita and not say thank you? How can we do that? We have to bless. And so therefore, even though we're using Hashem's name, we're going to take a risk here. And we're going to say, everyone, use Hashem's name, make a blessing for the pita. Full or not full. The risk we're taking. Hashem sees this risk. Look at these people. They're taking a risk just for me. They might be in violation of laws of not taking Hashem's name in vain. I didn't tell them to make a blessing for just one pita. And yet they're so obsessed with saying thank you to me, they're going to take that risk. How do I not treat them unfavorably? treat them better, unjustly, on the way back. And so this is what the Gemara says about the results of Birkat Hamazon. So to wrap it up, a little depth about Birkat Hamazon we touched on. What do we say? Number one, 100 berachot every single day is an obligation from the Torah, from the pasuk in this parasha. V'ata Yisrael, ma Hashem Elokecha shu el mimach. It says ma. You can read it me'ah, 100. If you do the 100 blessings, you get saved from the 100 curses. Number one. Shulchan Aruch says that this is a halakha, and like we said, even women should try to do the 100 blessings every single day. Number two. If you read Tehillim 128 has a new meaning for you. Tehillim 128 is now talking about when your wives are grapes and the kids are olives around the tables, about David HaMelech saying, everyone let's bless Hashem, because the Gematria is 100. Hichen Yeborach Hagabed, Chen is 100, 100 a person should bless. Tehillim 128 should be different for you from now on. The other Tehillim we did was the Fnei Abimelech, when he made himself crazy before Abimelech. That was another Tehillim we did. 34. We said the berachot, the 4 blessings. Now, if you didn't know this before, now you know it. There are 4 blessings in Birkat Hamazon, and we know the reasons for each one. Moshe Rabbeinu, the first one. Yoshua, the second one, for the land of Israel. David and Shlomo, the third one. And the rabbis made the 4th one for the people of Betad who were killed. We said that Slach's answer, the Slach's reason why we want to talk about people who died in the 4th blessing, is it's a lesson to us that we can last through Galut. Remember this one. We also talked about the circle of life, the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov that brought to us by the Shvila Pinchas. There's 4 categories: Domem, Tzomea, Hayim, and Daber. 4 categories. Each category nourishes off the one below it. When we eat, we get all the nourishment from all the 4 categories. And then we become the first category again. How do we go about accomplishing our task? Medaber, using our mouths to say the blessing and Torah at the table. We mentioned that on Shabbat from the Zohar, Hashem is so happy when we eat. So if we have a hard time with the Birkat Hamazon, my recommendation would be, let's at least start. If you haven't started, let's at least start on Shabbat. There's no phones on Shabbat. There's no computers. There shouldn't be any TVs. And so therefore, on Shabbat, when it's quiet, let's make that the one day a week that we really sit down and bench properly with Kavanah. Let's start with Shabbat. We also talked about sometimes why Panasah is difficult. Why is Panasah harder for us than for a bird? And we answer from the Gemara Kiddushin, because using the Baal Shem Tov, because we have to do our job. If we don't do our job properly, why should the Panasah, why should the food want to be a part of us? The food doesn't want to be a part of anyone who's not clarifying it. And so therefore, if we want to have Panasah easier, let's get some Kavanah and Birkat Hamazon. There's a Chinuch, I just want to read one line from the Chinuch, Sefer Chinuch, just to finish off. The Sefer Chinuch says, Kach mechabel ani min rabotai. This is what I accepted from my rabbis. Yishmeret me'el, Hashem should protect them. Shekol hazahid b'Birkat Hamazon. Everyone who's careful with Birkat Hamazon, mizrotav mitzuyan lo b'chavod kol yamav. His food, his panasah, will be ready for him all of his days. It won't be a challenge. And so again, let's work on it. It's the best thing we could do for our life. Birkat Hamazon from a book, or close our eyes and say it, sit down. And at the very least, let's not avoid bread during the week because we don't want to say Birkat Hamazon. Don't do that. Eat the bread and say Birkat Hamazon. You gain 2 things. You gain the blessings of Birkat Hamazon, and you also get yourself towards those 100 blessings a day, which everyone has to do. With that, have a great week, everyone. 4.